Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Brian. I am doing a couple videos for guard taping equipment. This video is going to be all about Sabre. This is not the end-all be-all, it's just what my teachers and instructors have taught me, and I want to teach to as many of you as possible. For this, a couple materials. You want white tape, and this changes per what your instructors may want, so check in with them, double check. White tape, black tape, and for me personally, I like using blue for my spot tape. I'll show you what happens with that at the very end. But here's what you need: your Sabre. Doesn't matter which Sabre you have, they all come in different shapes and sizes. This was taped recently, so I undid everything. There was a lot of gunk on it, a little goo gone on a paper towel, wiped it clean, and then soap and water on a paper towel, and we're all good. In the event that you have, this is a King Sabre or an Excalibur, whatever that might be, if this bottom screw is a little loose, just use a flathead screwdriver and tighten it in. In the event that it is constantly being tightened and it's not going anywhere for you, the screw might be broken, so you might want to get a replacement. You can find that online at any of our guard websites that we like to use. So for this guy, I'm going to start with the hilt of the gun. For that, I'm going to need my black tape. A lot of different ways that you can take this. For me, I like it to be one good continuous roll, so I am going to start up here on the end. You gotta use your feet in a little yoga position, if you will. But cut about 3 strips that are about 2 to 3 inches long. Cover right over that outer screw. This point right here has the most curvature, so to get one good continuous line here in a second, having this already pre-taped is beneficial, I believe. So right over the screw, one on top, it's kind of at a 45-degree angle going downward, and then if I flip it over, I'll do the same thing. And this guy, this last one, should go right to the edge of the basket. And you get something that looks like so. You could do that all again, really depends on the user. The more tape on the hilt, the more it'll be protected. So if you're a beginner and you're tossing new and just nervous that it's gonna hit the ground and get scuffed up, another layer never hurt. It's not gonna add too much extra weight to your blade. And I like to do it on the screw part because I do believe it gives it a little bit longevity when it's all said and done. All right, one more time on the bottom. And one more time on that top part. And then we can start to go around. Now, here's one thing that I have noticed over the years. As you go through the basket, a newer tape is a little harder to do because it's so thick. So twisting it is a good way to go. Or get a roll of black tape that's already been used a little bit. Works just the same. So, starting at the edge, I'm gonna loop all 3 of those that I've already put down on a vertical path. I'm gonna put this here and not hurt my floor. Sorry for whichever cat might use that. Addison, you still there? She's facing them, she's in timeout. This is her favorite spot. All right, so as you loop through here, there are these little finger grooves. Each rotation does the opposite. So the first one I did was that top little groove. Now I'm gonna go in the valley, and if you'll hold down with your left thumb, then you can manipulate the roll of tape with your right hand to go through the basket. And this one, if you watched my rifle video, there are some times that you can just kind of go. This one, constantly rotating the equipment helps. It just makes sure that you're getting a good clean line. Once you get the roll through, all these waves exist. So I push it back up again and position it where I want it, right over that little notch. And then the more you can pull a little bit, don't pull too much, you don't want it to rip, the smoother it will land through all those grooves, and it keeps the integrity of that shape and doesn't give you any waves or bubbles. So let's keep going here. Again, it's personal preference. This part of the blade is a one and done for me. You could go back over it again if you wanted to. I don't believe you need to, but again, if someone has requested or you think it is better for you, go with it. No harm, no foul. Sorry, my tape twisted a little bit. I was fixing it up. There we go. issues with this, y'all. Let's undo that. Mess ups happen, right? Won't use that. In the event this happens to you, for me, I like to cover it up so it doesn't look like there's a second piece of tape. So I just go over it a little bit more than I probably should. And pull it toward where I'm about to cover up, and then you can't see where the end is. Wow, much better. There's some variations here. Some people say cover the silver part inside the basket. Some people say not. Who really knows? It's personal preference. I like to go all the way to the edge of the black and leave that part silver. It gives me a good clean line. I'm not having to go right up next to the basket. And because I said so, I'm gonna go ahead and just try it this way. I'm gonna come back the direction we came from and give it a second coat. I've never really done that before, but I don't believe it's going to hurt anything in the long run, and it'll clean up any lines like before that had that little mishap. It'll clean it up and make it look like it's one smooth piece the whole time. And if you're anything like me, taping equipment is kind of cathartic, so another layer, it doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt. It's just relaxing. Who doesn't like their equipment looking nice when you're ready to go to a competition, right? All right, and once you get back to the back, one last rotation. I always like tape to finish on the underside, so you never have to look at it. Weird, right? Then pull that down, and we got a nice good taped hilt. All right, so now let's go to the body of our blade. There are many ways you can tape the blade of a saber. Through all of my years in color guard and every instructor that I've had, this seems to be the favorite, if you will. I like it too. It provides plenty of grip, and yeah, let's just go for it. So if you are at right flat, you've got the basket in your left hand, you're looking at the blade, take your tape, cover up right next to the hilt, but leave a little bit of silver visible. The reason I do this is because the second time I go around, it'll complete that full line, and then I can start to angle it. So I'm gonna go all the way around, keeping it nice and flush, go back underneath one last time, and so now, on your vantage point from here, I'm gonna start to pull this, and I'm gonna pull so it angles just a little bit. I'm a math nerd, forgive me. That's like a 15-degree angle. Any more than that, you're gonna get a bubble on the start. You don't want a bubble. So just a little bit, because then it's gonna become exponential. It'll start to rotate on its own. And what you're aiming for is if this is your tape, you're aiming for not a half, but a quarter of the previous tape to be covered up. So you get a thin line of stripe, if you will, all the way down your blade. And the more you kind of pull with your thumb backward as you do it, the cleaner that line looks. And what's fun about this for me, and I know I use fun loosely, is if you get a bubble, pull it up, pull a little extra, it should flatten itself right back out again. I think the more time for the detail here on your saber, the better it's gonna look, the longer it's gonna last, and it looks nice. So, do that for the next foreseeable future. And once you get a good rhythm, run with it. I think keeping the roll of tape closest to the blade and just moving it around with your left hand, the faster it'll become. It's maybe hard to see, but I can promise you that all of these little crossovers all look different, but they're similar enough. They're about that quarter of the width of the tape. Make sure that the little bit of crossover doesn't become too small, because you want to have a nice good protection cover between each revolution. I said earlier, this is not the end all be all. I've seen sabers taped where people tape down the entire length of the blade and back again, perfectly fine. It's very stark straight line, so it's not a personal request for me, but it is not wrong by any stretch. So if that is something your instructor has asked you to do, go for it. They have their reasons, as do we all, right? Not yet. once you do it enough, you'll find a rhythm that works for you. Once I get about here, I like to just pull. You can see the back of it. I know that makes no sense, but you can see the angle that covers the previous one, and then as you come around the back, you can figure out where it's going to be and trust that it looks just as good as the side that you're looking at. Now, at the very end, I would suggest going back to looping it around one at a time, because you don't want too much tape in your hand when you get to the tip, because now you're going to do something fun and unconventional. Give the tip a nice good bulb. The last 2 revolutions, maybe 3 depending on what you want, circle. I have no count, I have no rhyme or reason, other than most of the time when you're spinning Sabre, a lot of choreographers like to go to the tip of the blade. In doing so, you want to give it as much volume as possible so you know where to stop and squeeze, and you don't just slide right off the blade, right? So, here we go. I go down, come back up again, down one more time, come back up again, twice, and that gives me a nice good fatty part of the tip. It's gonna look a little wonky. It's okay, no one can see from 500 feet away. If you are needing a little more, one more time down and back to a third time might be beneficial, but I like 2. And what happens is, by the time you come back again, when you start to go down, the tape is gonna angle itself in the reverse manner that we did on the way up. So you'll get a nice good crisscross action with all of these lines once I get there. So let me pull this down a little bit. Cover up that lack of mess. And then same rules as before. I always thought that when you did this, they had to make X's. That's how OCD I was. The X's will shift on you. They might be tall X's, they might be short X's, but those crisscross actions will exist. And you can kind of see some right here. They're going back, yada, yada, yada. One thing real quick while I do this, because now you just got to go all the way back down to the hilt the entire way of the blade. Pull, keep it close, because the closer you are, the easier it is to make sure each revolution is nice and flat, not creating any bubbles for you. Oh, sorry about my nose. I was gonna say something, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, materials. One thing that I forgot to mention, it's over there, because I had it when I had my flag taping video going on. Get a measuring tape. For anyone that is a true Sabre enthusiast, there is a little mathematics and physics to where your spot tape and your catch tape is. That is something that was kind of established by the greats of color guard, and it has been passed down to many, many people, myself included, and now you. But utilizing a measuring tape will give you an approximation of where tape is, which we'll talk about when we get there. There's a rhyme and a reason. And then for this guy, I have a roll of blue tape ready to go, because that's where I'm going to use, that's what I'm going to use for my spotter. It helps me see it. It's just a color that I'm able to find in the air, and to the person 500 feet away, they can't tell it's really blue. Or maybe they can, they never told me, it's fine. All right, when you get down here to the edge of the hilt, you're gonna wanna pull the tape back on itself so it becomes flush one more time. So keep the angle going until you're about to hit, and this usually happens, I get the bottom of it, just works out. If you're on the top, no big deal. Once you go over that last revolution, pull the tape in the flat direction that you need to. It will still have an angle, so just attempt to get to the corner of the inverse. Now you can make a nice good perpendicular line and then go over it one last time. That puts me on the top of my blade. I don't like that. So I'm gonna do it one last time, and it's gonna go all the way to the bottom, and then that's where I'm gonna snip. Again, personal preference. You can be as OCD with your equipment as you want to. All right. Awesome. All right, order of operations. Sorry for the math. The spot tape, weight of tape affects this. So do this guy last. So here's what you wanna do. Take your measuring tape, and here's the math behind it. Measure the blade. The blade is 34 inches. You want the blade to be cut into thirds. So 34 inches cut into thirds is 11 and a half inches. So from the tip, measure, 11 and a third inches. 11 and a third inches is going to put me roughly here. And I would mark it because if this tape becomes wonky and you need to redo it, well, you pull that off, you don't have the measuring tape, the marking is there, so you have it good to go. Sharpie's sometimes your best friend because then you don't have to do the measuring again. All right, I'll roll that up later. Just like my flag video, 6 is a resounding number and what my instructors always told me because it gives you good feel. So I'm going to, right in the middle of that, put the tape on the side that I see and then rotate it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's on the bottom, my favorite. Give it a snip, and it's nice and flush. That I can feel. You can see when you're right here, and from the person all the way up in the audience, they can't tell. It's just part of the blade, okay? Got the whole thing taped, now let's find our balance point. Balance point, it's different for every single blade. So use your index finger, and I would use not the top, not the bottom, but the side. Handgun, if you will. Right there on the top. If it starts to droop, it's not in the right spot. So constantly move it. It's still a little tip heavy, so move it one more time. And we're talking like millimeters, so less is more. That looks good. All right, so right where the top of my finger is on the blade, I'm gonna make a little mark. And that's roughly the center, just to make sure. Sorry, everybody. Just to make sure. One more visit. We're good, all right. Personal thing, I do not like seeing a spot tape because it's different from the blade, it chops it in half. To each their own, everyone is different. A lot of instructors like to tape the whole thing. This could be black, the catch tape could be black. Again, this is a personal preference, but the math behind it, figuring out where they go, roughly stays the same. I cut a nice good square. I don't like to use the end of it because it, you know. Put it right in the middle. And that tape sits right at the top and the bottom of the blade, and you can't see it from the other side. And that, so I can show you, is our balance point. And that's where we want to be able to spot the weapon in the air when it's rotating. Might be a little to the hilt, but it's okay, it's leveling out. And so there is a taping tutorial for a saber. Again, on all of these videos, I would like to preface by saying everyone's different. People have their own ways of doing things, but this is just what has worked with me and my students over the past years based on the instructors that I've had. So I hope this has brought you a little information, and I can't wait to see any tag videos of your taping tutorials along the way. So best of luck, guys. Have fun.